Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is an A Series Plus 1275 engine out of a Mini, an old style Mini, not a BMW Mini. We're doing this for a guy that I've known for a lot of years. His name's James as well. He's just started restoring a Mini 1275 and he wants us to recondition the engine. I don't know if he wants us to do headwork to it. I've got to get it apart and then he's going to come over. We're going to go through what's there, what the spec is at the moment, which it looks to me like it's standard. All the ports are standard, and I believe he took the engine straight out of a scrap car. I'm stripping it now. We're going to do a list of all the bits or everything that's wrong with it at the moment, but the main reason I'm stripping it is he needs to get the gearbox reconditioned. We don't do gearbox reconditioning, so the reason we've got to strip the engine for him to recondition the gearbox is on a Mini, the gearbox is bolted directly underneath the engine and it's the sump as well. So basically the oil is stored in the gearbox is running in the oil that also feeds the engine. Let me show you around it. So we're going to get rid of all these old pipes and stuff. I mean, I'm going to stick them in a box so he can take them back with him. And then this is the clutch and flywheel in here. So I'll take all this apart. The end of the crank is on a very slight taper, which is a bit of a nightmare because that means normally the flywheel grabs hold of that and sticks to it. So we're going to have to try and get that off quite carefully. And then this is the gearbox. This is the diff here. This is the gearbox, this is the speedo cable, and then obviously we've got the front pulley, water pump, and then around the front we've got the oil filter housing. The starter motor goes in there. This is the oil pressure switch, and then this is the feed that feeds the oil straight into the main gallery of the engine, and then along here. Then we've got your spark plugs, head bolts, rocker cover, thermostat housing, and then this has, so these are the exhaust ports, the two outer ones, and then the center one feeds two valves, and then these are the inlet ports. Once again, these feed two valves each, and this here is the fuel pump. Well, it's not the fuel pump, there's nothing there, but that's where the fuel pump would bolt to. And then it would normally have here a slave cylinder, what pushes the clutch. That's one of the breathers. And there we go. So let's get it stripped down and see where we're at. I'm going to go and get some tools ready, and I'm going to get a container to keep all the engine parts in, and then a box to put all the parts that we don't need. So I've got the cylinder head off. I've took all the hoses off. This speedo cable is loose now. I've just got to pull that out. I need to get this gearbox mount off. I've got to pull the flywheel off with the clutch, and then it's this side casing, the gearbox bolts, and then I can lift the engine off the gearbox. But the first thing I did, just to make it easier to move around, was take the cylinder head off, and I thought I would just show you what I can see straight away. It's got heavy carbon build-up around the spark plugs, around the combustion chamber. You can see it's flaking off here. It's got really heavy carbon build-up on the exhaust valves. It looks like it's been burning on the edge of this valve, and then there's rust just coming through here and here. Now that might not be anything to worry about. That could just be the fact that where this engine's been left for X amount of time, these valves was open and it's just managed to get a bit of damp in there and then just start to rust the combustion chamber. So once I've got the engine stripped, I'll strip the cylinder head and we will pressure test it to make sure that's all good. Inside the combustion chamber, we've got the same heavy carbon build-up. But do you know what? It don't look too bad. I mean, yes, it's tired. It's obviously burning oil, but it's coming apart as if it's a completely unmolested standard engine. So with a bit of luck, everything would be at standard, and it'd be a nice one to recondition. But we'll carry on stripping it.
With this clip that holds this washer, it's got a little bear on it somewhere. And then that gear, it's little teeth that, there you go, 4 sets of double teeth that allow it to click onto that.
So I've got this casing off now, and what this reveals is we've got a bearing race at the bottom here for these roller bearings. This is an idler gear. And we've got some needle rollers here for the idler gear, so that can come out now. And this gear, the drive gear off the crank. So the drive gear off the crank drives the gearbox and the clutch. That's what keeps all that in place. That's the oil seal to stop the oil getting out to the clutch. And then the plastic ring that I took off is a dust seal to stop the dust from the clutch getting into the oil seal. That's just an idler gear that goes in there. So when the engine's running, that gear, which would go in first, like that. Oops. So when the engine's running, this gear here turns this gear, which then turns the gearbox, and then the gearbox turns the diff, and then the drive shafts, and it gives you drive. So my next job is to take the oil pump off. So I'll whip that out now, and then I'll separate the casings, and then I'll show you the way the oil system works. So this is the A-series stripped. I lifted the engine off the gearbox, and then the battery went flat on the GoPro. So while I was waiting for the battery to charge up a bit, I just whipped the crank pistons and rods out and laid it out so I can show you a bit more of it. So we'll start with the gearbox. I mean, I don't get involved in this, but they're very straightforward in all fairness. I don't get involved because we can't do it. We're too busy with engine stuff, and it's probably best to go to a specialist that knows them inside out. So my customer's going to pick it up like this, and then he's going to get it rebuilt and cleaned up, I think. So the diffs in here, these are the gears, and then this is the oil pickup pipe for the engine. So this will need taking out and cleaning, but they'll probably do that when they strip it. So basically it's these bolts here and these bolts here that hold the pickup pipe in. The one bad thing about these is because the engine and the gearbox shares the same oil, it does get quite dirty in the bottom of the sump. So this will want a really good, I mean, I can feel it feels quite deep, a bit sludgy and quite deep. So anyway, that's for James to sort out. But then the oil is picked up through this oil pickup pipe, and it runs up through this gearbox casing here, and then there's an O-ring that seals the gearbox to the engine. So the oil comes up here, it goes through here, it does a 90-degree turn here, and then it comes through here into the back of the pump. The oil pump is driven by the camshaft on that dog there inside the cam, and that's the other half of the drive. You can see the oil coming out when I turn it. So the oil goes through here, it goes through the pump, it comes out the other side. So then it runs through this part here. So just so you know, the camshaft is driven from the crankshaft by means of the chain and camshaft and crankshaft gear, which are in there now. And then it runs through this oil gallery. In fact, I'm going to have to turn the engine over. Then as soon as it flows into the engine here, it then turns this corner, runs along an oil way along here, across here, and then this is the oil pressure relief valve that sits in there. But you can see the oil way through there with a torch. Then the oil flows along here, and then it goes through this pipe which runs along the engine, which we've took off, it's in that box down there, runs along here. This is then the oil filter housing. So the pipe then goes onto the end of here, runs through here, through the filter. It then goes up the center of the filter and then into this hole, which is drilled on a diagonal angle, and then into this oil gallery. This is one of the main oil galleries here. So this oil gallery runs along here, and then it feeds the mains through here, here, and then at the back of the main it lubricates the cam bearings through these holes, and then it runs through an oil gallery in the cylinder head, through the cylinder head, and then it feeds the rockers. And then in the oil pressure relief valve, once this has built up enough pressure, the valve on the spring comes back, and then there's a hole here, just there, look. So as soon as it's got enough pressure, the oil pressure relief valve comes back, it opens up the hole, and then the excess oil then flows straight back into the sump and gearbox through that oil hole there. So that's the bleed back to the sump. And what's good about this is all the oil holes are actually, well, the oil galleries are in good condition. But what I will do is I've got to take out these oil gallery bungs here, here, when I take the core plugs out, so when it goes in the cleaner all that can be washed. You have to turn the engine upside down to get the camshaft out, because the cam followers, which are down there, if it's the other way around, they rest on the cam and you can't get them past the journal. So the easiest way to do it is to just turn the block upside down, push them cam followers down. Well, I use this little pick, and yeah, take the camshaft out. This is a standard camshaft which is in very good condition, and the crank is standard. Once again, it's in very good condition. I haven't measured it yet. There's a slight little mark there, but you can just feel it. So I'll polish this and have another measure up. The bores are worn, and then another thing that I check as I'm stripping it, if I get two of these up, I look on the piston here to see the wear mark, and this is kind of in line with the rod, so that means that that rod is good and straight, although I will check it. The same with that. If this line went off to the side, we've got a bent rod, but I have checked these and we're all good. The oil control ring is badly worn, the second ring is worn as well. But that's it, that's all nice and stripped. James is going to fetch a gearbox so he can do his bits to that. All I've got to do is take the oil gallery bungs out, and we're going to carry on with that. I've polished the A-Series Plus crank and measured it, and that's come in bang on size, which is nice because I can just get away with polishing it and using a standard bearing which keeps the crank a bit stronger. So this is standard on the mains and standard on the big ends. There's no wear to this crank at all. It's actually in really good condition. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just finishing prepping the block, which is there. I'm going to put that in the cleaner to knock the initial dirt off it and all the crud off it, and then I've had Simon from Nevlock send me all the parts down to build this. So we're going to be fitting good quality neural pistons at 20 thou oversize. So we're going to bore it out to 20 thou. He sent me everything else, all the gaskets, the oil pump. And what's good about using Simon is he knows these engines inside out. I don't have to find engine numbers and everything like that. I say, I've got an A series plus here, I want this, this and this, and he deals with it and sorts it. So yeah, no complaints there. And now I am gonna get it in the cleaner. So it shouldn't look like this for much longer. I'm gonna quickly remove the oil gallery bungs and the core plugs so we can get all the cleaner to go through every part of the block, because we want it looking mint. Sam has actually just taken all of the aluminium bits, so the gearbox casing, the end plates, what else, a few other bits and bobs, all the aluminium bits to be vapor blasted. So we don't vapor blast anything to do with anything that can get internally in the engine. We won't do that. If it's got an oil way in it, what we can't clean out, we don't vapor blast. So things like this little oil filter housing, that's a relief valve there with a spring and a ball in it, so I know that I won't be able to get all the vapor out of that, or the media out of that. So this will be acid bathed and cleaned by hand. And yeah, that's it. We'll carry on. And this is one of the center core plug out of the A series, and it just goes to show why it's important to, even though a core plug might look good, to replace them if we're reconditioning them, because that looked fine, and then as soon as I gave it a tap, it just fell apart and it's rotted all the way through, and I think it was only rot that was stopping that from leaking. So I will show you how I get core plugs out, which obviously means it's going to go horribly wrong and it won't come out, but I will put you down on the side and show you what I do. If I can get this to stand up. You see it? Yeah, I'm going to do this one here first. So I'll just use a punch or a screwdriver or anything really, but normally a punch, and then just tap on one side to get it to rotate. But then as soon as it gets where it's past the socket, I really then try and put some diagonal on it to get it to try and spin, and then use either the screwdriver, the pry bar, or whatever I'm using to then just hook it out. Like that. And that one, I mean, it's not as bad, but there is a fair bit of rot there, but the actual bottom of the block is just all old rust and sediment and all that, so we've got to clean all that up. So one more core plug. Once again, it's just all rust in the bottom of there. So next thing I'm going to do is remove these oil gallery bungs, so I can make sure that there's no build-up of dirt in the two main oil galleries, along there and along there. So Sam's been on the A series for me today. He's rebored it to +20. He's currently honing it, and he's also skimmed the deck surface. So he's just got to take a few more tenths out of each one, and then we've got to go through. So I've got the lead-free seats in the Mini cylinder head. I've shot blasted all the cylinder head in the combustion chamber down the ports, the outside of the cylinder head. So what I'm going to do now is cut all the seats, make sure that they're all at the same height, cut the inlet seats as well. Then that needs a reface, the gasket faces need cleaning, and then that needs to spend tomorrow in the cleaner, ready to go on his block. So that's all the valve seats recut. I've got to grind them in, but a simple test to know that the seat is true is if the valve bounces like that. As you can see, it's bouncing up and down a couple of times. So I know that them valves are grinding nice. If the seat isn't cut properly, what happens is when you drop the valve in like that, you don't get that bounce, it just sticks in. It also doesn't sound nice. But we'll get them in with the carburetor paste anyway, but this can go downstairs now and be refaced. So we're having to skip a few bits forward on the Mini engine because I started adding some footage to the GoPro last night, and the machining parts of this have all disappeared. So we've debunged it, acid bathed it. I've got to put the core plugs in. It's been rebored, new pistons. My friend James, whose engine this is, he's had the gearbox reconditioned. I've got a new oil pump to fit to it, new timing chain, and then just crack on with cleaning all the bits up and making sure it's all good. We did spot the drop gear that goes in here has got a chip missing out of it, so I've ordered a replacement, one of those off eBay, and there's some damage on one of the teeth for this part here as well, so I've ordered one of those. But it's looking pretty good so far. I put new cam bearings in it. It's the original standard cam because it was immaculate, and yeah, looking good. So I've put the thermostat housing back on the Mini. I've put a new thermostat housing in there. I've just sorted out the water pump pulley, new washers on there. I've just fitted a new bearing race in here and a new drop gear bearing in there. So I've warmed this casing up to make the bearing race and the bearing fit nice, so I'm just letting that cool before I fit that. And then on here there's a new oil pump. I've got to put the drop gear in with the thrust washer each side, and then just make sure all that the thrust side of that is set perfectly. What else have I done? I put that in loose, so I'm gonna have to let my customer know. I've got to find two washers for that to bolt that in. Then it's just the alternator bracket, and then, to be honest, apart from putting the new clutch on that I've got, this engine is done. Oh, in fact, I've got one of the diff covers to fit for him. He wanted me to put that on for him as well, but so far it's looking pretty trick. So that's it, I've come to the end of this A Series Plus 1275 engine for my customer and a guy that I've known for about 18 years, James. The brief was pretty simple on this one. It was to strip, do a report on it, and basically get it back to a lead-free standard engine. When we stripped it, it was pretty much in immaculate condition, crank-wise. The bores was worn slightly, so it needed a rebore. The crank only needed a polish. The valves was okay, the springs tested okay, the camera's immaculate. So we debunged it, took the core plugs out, it went in the acid, rebore, block, reface, one of our just standard lead-free converted cylinder heads, stripped the rocker gear down, and there was no wear there, so nothing needed replacing there either. We put a new timing chain and timing chain tensioner on it. It's got a new oil pressure relief valve, new thermostat, new water pump. We put a new clutch in it. When we stripped it, there was some damage to the drop gear, which I didn't notice when I stripped it actually, but when we were coming to put it back together, we noticed that, so I ordered a second-hand one of those off eBay. All of the aluminium parts was vapor blasted, with no oil ways in them, because we don't vapor blast anything with an oil way in it. James had the gearbox reconditioned and brought that back to us to fit onto the engine, so we've done that for him. And yeah, that's it, it's complete. We've painted it all, got it all sorted, and hopefully this will get his little Mini flying along. I'll show you around it. So bits like this, these haven't been vapor blasted because this is an oil way basically, so we won't put anything with media in there. I've got the timing gear in there for him. This is the bracket for the distributor hole there. This is dipstick tube, so he's got to fit them bits himself because he's got them. He's also got the bracketry for the engine mount and the clutch arm. It has a slave cylinder here to push the clutch, and then like I say, it's all been through the acid, all the tinware's been tidied up. I've put him a nice yellow mark on 0 on the pointers, on the ignition pointers, and I've put him a nice little yellow mark in the front pulley, and I've also checked that that is TDC, so that's all right. So when he comes to time it up, he hasn't got to be searching around for a mark. That's all sorted for him. I've gone through the valve clearances for him, so once he's ran it up, got it to temperature a few times, he just needs to recheck the cylinder head, torque, and run through the valve clearances again. New oil gallery bungs. This is the fuel pump port, so he'll have to put his fuel pump in that when he gets it. And that's it. Hope you like this video, guys. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments section below, and if you could leave the word Mini in the comment sections, that would be great also. If you could hit the subscribe button and the alert bell, that would mean a lot to us as well. And thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next video. See you later. Ta-ra.